Welcome to the September 7th, 2023 regular meeting of the Human Services Advisory Board and call the meeting to order at 6:01 p.m. on September 7th. Thank you all for attending. We're going to do a roll call for the record of the board members in attendance. Yancy.
Present.
Clayton, Carla.
Here.
Sharif, I'm here. Monica Gonzalez. Glenn Parsons, she's out. And then Gloria Quinn is also out. And then Courtney Welch.
Here.
Okay. And then Mariana Zamora, non-voting.
Present.
So with 4 out of the 7 voting members in attendance, we do have a quorum. Okay, so item number 3 is staff. Is anyone present in person, online, or by phone to speak during the citizens comment period? No. Okay. So we'll go to order number 4, item number 4, the minutes.
Oh, and I'm sorry, can I remind them of something?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, Courtney, the rule is that you have to be on the screen in order to be counted as being present. Don't ask me who came up with that rule, but we do need to see your face in order to count you as part of the quorum.
Okay, no worries, no worries. I'm just moving around. Let me find a better place to sit. So I didn't want to be sitting on the couch and I look a little too cozy, but if you guys see I'm present.
Yes.
Okay.
Whatever works. Okay, thank you.
Okay. No worries.
Okay. So we'll now consider approval by motion of the August 17th, 2023 meeting minutes. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Okay, motion to approve by Clayton Carlisle. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Yancy Edero. And does the board have any discussion or corrections regarding the minutes? All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Say nay. Okay. 4-0 vote. The minutes are approved for last time. Okay. So now we're going to get to the presentations for today. We will now receive a 5-minute presentation by the applicant agency for each program that was listed on this evening's agenda. Each agency will receive a 30-minute or 30-second warning as the 5-minute time limit is approaching, but the time limit is a little bit flexible. Each presentation will be followed by a 10-minute question and answer session between board members and the agency regarding the program or application. Members of the public are welcome to listen to the presentation, but will not take part in the discussion or the question and answer session. Each program will receive 15 minutes total for presentation and question and answer session. Since I am a voting member of the board, so that I can devote my attention to the presentation discussions, staff will introduce some presenters and track the time. Okay. So Carol, go ahead.
Okay, so I've already moved the presenters over. Let me make sure I don't have any missing. Okay. And so we are going to go in the order that's on the agenda. And so first presenting is Julia Ramsey New and Victoria Berry. They're presenting on behalf of the Greater San Marcos Youth Council, and the project is the Children's Shelter.
Okay, great. Thank you, everybody, for being here. You're gonna let me know when to start, or you just want me to go?
So you can start. Do you need to share your screen? I think you have the ability if you need to.
I don't need to.
Okay.
Thank you, though.
Good.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Julia New, and I'm the Executive Director for the Greater San Marcos Youth Council. Next month is our 37th year serving abused and neglected children, as well as families with children who are experiencing crisis or conflict. With a mission to shelter children and strengthen families, our vision is that every child will be raised by a loving and supportive family who have the skills and resources necessary to raise competent and productive citizens, therefore eradicating child abuse and neglect. 175 Texas children are the victims of abuse every day, and 1 in 10 children will be sexually abused before they turn 18. Texas has the highest rate of child maltreatment in the country. The primary types of child maltreatment among the nearly 57,000 victims from last year are neglectful supervision, sexual abuse, and physical abuse. Of these confirmed cases, 500 were from Hays County. Texas also has the highest number of child abuse-related fatalities, with 182 children last year, including 65 confirmed child abuse and neglect-related near fatalities. And I think we can agree that children should be at home with their families. However, it's not always safe for them to remain in their homes. Since opening our doors, our shelter has had a safety rating of 100%. We accomplished this by exceeding ratios in caregivers, providing normalcy activities, and requiring overnight staff to remain awake, all before they were mandated. The best way to describe this program is it's a triage unit that stabilizes traumatized children, all different ages, different stories, and above all else, who need to feel safe and loved, secure in the knowledge that no one will hurt them during their stay with us. Children are referred by state placing units, state contractors, and law enforcement, and in rare circumstances, a youth will show up on our doorstep. They remain with us until they are able to return home or until more permanent arrangements can be made. And according to recent studies, children spend an average of 1.5 years in care and a little over 2 years waiting to be adopted. Many years ago, we added children ages 2 to 4 to our state permit in order to keep sibling groups together. Remaining with siblings when removed from what they know as home is critical to each child's well-being. These relationships are emotionally powerful and critically important, especially in foster care. Of the little ones in our care right now, one has needed a medical procedure since 2021. This child came into our care minus their siblings. After many phone calls and emails, they were brought to us, reunited with their youngest, and are doing well in our care. We don't know why they were separated, but our experience tells us that the place where the siblings were did not want the youngest of them due to the child's medical issues and neurological developmental disorder. Another child in our care was brought to us by law enforcement when the mother was arrested for drug use and possession. Our teenagers went to prom this year, and another made the honor roll. While in our care, each child attends school, participates in activities appropriate for their age, including chores, attend counseling sessions, and they are fully assessed both physically and mentally. Many have immediate needs upon their arrival. They need to eat, bathe, sleep. They need medical attention, clothing, and shoes. Many are physically ill, developmentally, socially delayed, and others need lice treatment. Our rate of success last year was 96%, with many children exceeding expectations for growth and development. Over the years, former residents have contacted us to let us know how they are. There are those who donate and others who come back to visit. We recognize the ideal situation is for every child to remain at home, well cared for and supported by family. With many children not able to remain in their homes due to abuse and neglect, we work diligently to ensure that each child who needs us gets what all humans need: kind consideration, genuine respect, and opportunities to maintain our dignity as we work toward breaking the cycle of abuse. Thank you.
And so now we'll shift over to the question and answer session. And I think we don't really have any members of the public, but I'll just remind you that this is just to be between the board and the presenters. And and we'll just kind of do it informally. So if y'all have a question, go ahead and go. And if we start talking over each other, I'll just have you start raising your hand and I can call on you.
I have a quick question. So do you actually have a shelter, a facility where you house these kids here in San Marcos?
Yes, we do. We have a 16-bed facility on the off the access road of 35.
How many direct clients are you serving from San Marcos?
Last year, I believe we had 6 from San Marcos. You know, you can make a case and say that every child who comes here is a San Marcos child, but the fact of the matter is that there aren't enough placements such as ours, or any placements in Texas for that matter, for foster kids. And so we do take kids from Seguin, Lockhart, New Braunfels. And then of course, with the 35 corridor running right beside us, right through us, we get kids, runaways and traffic victims.
So if you had 6 from San Marcos, how many total did you have in 2022?
We had 164, I believe.
Concurrent
Last year.
overtime, like,
Yes.
so they were, okay.
Yeah.
At one time, how many kids can be in one facility, or the current facility that you have off of 35?
We've had our permit is 16.
Okay,
We've exceeded, we can exceed the permit under emergency situations, because we do have an extra bedroom.
okay.
You just have to get a special permission, a variance.
So, you said 16, and then, last year in 2022, how many kids were there? Like came in through the program or through the
165.
165? Okay. What's the average stay?
Wow, that's a great question. Last year, the average stay was 26 days. And it really just depends. We're one of the operations in Texas. We do request variances, and it's based on what's best for that child. So
Okay.
they can stay longer.
And this question, and sorry to the rest of the board if I'm like hogging time, but this is more a curiosity than anything, but do we see a difference leaning towards like any type of certain individual? Like, is it more females that have longer stays, males shorter stays, vice versa? Any kind of correlations that have just been out of this world that you guys have seen?
Probably our most extreme, I'm sorry about the feedback. Probably our most extreme case we've had over the years, or I should say one of the most. It was a brother and sister from here that were actually adopted by another family here. And it was because there was a parent, an offending parent, who kept appealing the decision.
Okay.
And then sibling groups. The other thing is, male, female's about the same. Sibling groups usually end up staying a little bit longer because they're harder. They're harder to place.
Is it because you don't want to separate them?
Right.
Is it okay? All right. I just want to make sure I understand and kind of get in your world a little bit.
That's okay. Come see us. We'd love to have you.
All right. I might have to take you up on that.
Okay,
All right.
good.
I welcome for the rest of the floor for questions.
Okay, so Clayton, I think you're next.
First, I just want to say congrats on the 96% success rate. What is the explanation for the 4% that is not included in that?
Those are kids who became a danger to themselves or others. And it has to be pretty extreme, because it's a failure on our part if a child can't complete the program. So those children went to residential treatment. I'm sorry, they went to a psych hospital. I don't think we had any. I think they all went to psych hospitals. In the past, we have had some that have had to go to detention because of laws they broke while they were here or on campus.
And then Mariana, you had your hand up.
Yes, Clayton actually asked the question. I was curious about what defines success. Is it
Yeah.
their inability to find a secure setting to live in temporarily.
Yeah, no, it's really, they have to be a danger to themselves or others, and then it has to be pretty extreme.
So out of those 100+ that were not from San Marcos, where do they come from? The ETJ or Hayes County or just all over Texas?
They come from Hayes County, probably I would say the majority come from Region 7 and Regions 8, which is San Antonio to Austin, and then Lockhart, New Braunfels, Seguin, you know, and we keep the goal is to keep 2 beds open for local emergencies so that we don't ever have to turn away local kids.
So can you expand on what these funds will be used for?
So we're asking for $15,000 to support the I believe it's the program director and the case manager, a portion of both their salaries. The program director is the mama of the house, and the case manager is the one who is responsible for making sure they get in, you know, if they're not already enrolled in school, making that happen, whatever medical, dental, psychological appointments, evaluations they need. It's what the case manager does.
How many case managers do you have?
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
as of right now, well, I was gonna ask the same question, I believe, but as of right now, how many caseworkers do you have and what's their caseload? And ideally, what should their caseload be?
Okay, that's a good question. We actually have direct care staff. So we have 12 right now,
Hmm.
and so let's say there's 12 kids in the house. Each direct care staff member is assigned to 4 children, and we always, as I said in my presentation, we exceed ratios. So like we're allowed to have 1 staff member with 8 kids, and that's not enough. That's not enough. So we always have more staff than is required by standards. And sometimes we have to do one-on-one, depending on the needs of the child. I'll tell you that hiring recently has been very challenging, more challenging than ever before.
Because of turnover or just because of talent or job market?
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't. It's I don't know if the, you know, it's kind of hard to compete with. I think Buc-ee's pays like $17, $18 an hour. I think that's part of it.
Okay.
You know, it's not an easy job. It's really not. And you have to be strong.
skin.
You have to have a thick skin.
Mhm.
Resilient. You have to be resilient.
Okay, we have about 30 seconds left. Does anybody else have questions?
One last question, I guess. So, how is this funding going to increase service or increase the number of people for, I guess, this year or next year?
This won't necessarily increase the number. There's no way for us to say that it will increase the numbers. All it will do is ensure the continuation of quality care and the positions that are critical to the smooth operation and the high effective rates that we have in the house.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I guess we'll stop there. And then, our next presenter is also Julia New. And Victoria Berry is here as a panelist as well, in case we need her. So Greater San Marcos Youth Council, this program is called Family and Youth Success. So go ahead, Julia.
Great. Thank you. Parenting is hard. Living with people is hard. Raising children is expensive, and parents are just people who happen to have children. Supporting families with children so they can stay together is critical. An effective way to do this is through prevention and early intervention services designed to prevent incidents of child abuse, neglect, truancy, delinquency, and is absolutely the way to go. It causes less trauma, improves coping skills, reduces stress and other risk factors, and is proven to be much less expensive than foster care or incarceration. It also improves high school graduation rates, decreases delinquency, improves economic stability in the community, and decreases the reliance on law enforcement. Families with children ages 6 to 17 are eligible for free counseling and support services, such as parenting classes, case management, advocacy, and basic needs assistance. We are also working toward offering anger management classes again based on community need. Referrals for FAYS services are from parents, school counselors, child protective services, and youth themselves. We operate FAYS out of our Counseling and Resource Center with family support specialists and counselors providing services on site, on school campuses, in clients' homes, and at parks or at other public places at the request of the family. Texas ranks 45th in overall child well-being, with 20% of Texas children living in poverty. Texas ranks 48th for health, 47th in family and community, and is last for access to children's mental health services. There are wait lists for mental health services throughout the state, and 61% of children with depression are receiving no treatment. Of the families we served last year, 42% were San Marcos residents, with approximately 45% from single-parent homes and 10% from homes with a guardian other than a parent. The majority of presenting problems were depression, anger and or aggression, social anxiety, and suicidal ideation or attempt, followed closely by family conflict and self-harm. Suicide is the second leading cause of death for youth ages 10 to 24. In May, we had 50 local families with children ages 6 to 16 on the wait list for counseling services. These referrals contain a notable number of children who are not yet teenagers. When a referral comes in, each caller is asked if they're in danger. If they are not, what is the presenting problem, and if a critical event occurred. The problems shared by these families are a sick or drug-addicted parent, incarcerated parent, divorce, early childhood trauma, domestic violence, a history of child protective services involvement, and truancy, including an 11-year-old with suicidal ideations, a 12-year-old who self-harms, and a 14-year-old who witnessed their friend's death. Last year, the 404 San Marcos residents we served received 1,224 sessions of counseling and parenting classes. The impact of these services reveal an effective rate of 86%, with 98% safe children and 100% increase in at least one protective factor. One was a 9-year-old who was a danger to other students and was close to being expelled. Another child who was so afraid to eat at school, it began to affect their physical well-being. After working with FAYS staff, both are doing well, as we learned during our follow-up calls, conducted 90 days after service ends. Another component of FAYS is our National Family Support Network program, with an average of 6 families served each month. Families gather to participate in a meal together and activities that promote working as a team. The mission of the National Family Support Network is to promote positive outcomes for all children, families, and communities by leveraging collective impact and championing quality family support. We became a certified site in October of 2021. Most importantly, we are working toward building an inclusive, diverse population of families in our community that support each other. Thank you.
Okay, and that's right at 5 minutes. Excellent timing. And so now we'll go into the question and answer session for the Family and Youth Success Program.
Hi, Julia. I had a few questions. Could you please repeat the information you shared about the number of families on the wait list and what their average wait time was to receive services?
Thanks, Mariana. I'm going to let Victoria answer that about the average time. I can tell you that now we have one family on the wait list. So Victoria, I'm sorry, will you answer that, please, ma'am?
Yeah, so the average time basically depends on the caseload of the counselor or family support specialist, but it can range recently from anywhere to 2 weeks to 2 months. It really just depends.
Okay, and what was the number you shared earlier, Julia, about the number of families y'all had on the wait list this last year?
We had 50,
50. Okay.
50 San Marcos families.
Okay, thank you. And then my last question was, last year you requested 75,000 for this program, and this year you're requesting 53. Could you give a little insight into the difference that has made for y'all's organization and maybe why there's that difference in the request?
Because last year we asked, well, let's see. So you were involved last year, and we asked for too much according to what was earmarked by City Council. And the hope is that by asking for the 53,000, that we'll actually get closer.
Okay. So a little bit more of a conservative request.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Sure.
How big is the number of staff between the shelter and the youth service success? How
So
big is GSM-wide?
So we have a total of 28 staff members, 30 when we're fully staffed for both programs.
Any overlap in programs? With this person who works in both?
We do. One of our family support specialists has served as our behavioral specialist in the house. We have program assistants who we have one in particular whose job description includes helping in the house. I will tell you that the shelter is the foundation of the agency, and because the kids live here, when they need something, we respond. So the Counseling and Resource Center is up front. Then we have the basketball court and volleyball court and play area, and then the house is in the back.
How many counselors do you have?
We have 4 family support specialists right now, and we're hiring for another family support specialist or a counselor.
Anybody else have questions about the Family and Youth Success Program?
Clayton and then Maria?
I'm sorry?
I was asking if Clayton had anything.
Oh. Anything?
I guess same question as last time. How many more families are you expecting to serve with, you know, if your funding is granted?
Victoria, you want to take a stab at that?
I guess it really depends on how many more counselors that we hire. If we hire another one, hopefully throughout the year, we can serve at least 60 more to 100 more families. Each counselor has a caseload of 30 clients.
Correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like you guys are looking to really get more retention and maybe increase pay and bring more people on payroll to then support and give better care to the kids that you have and will bring in to the program, like to be better suited for their needs. Would that be an accurate description?
I would say so, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we've never had, I've been here a really long time, and retention is, we haven't had this trouble in the past with hiring and retention.
Okay, so it's just like, this is new. Okay, I got it. And it's a hard job, you know, and I can see with the comment you said earlier, I think is very relevant and probably maybe looked over by some, but when you have Buc-ee's paying $17 an hour and, you know, it's a gas station and you're not getting hit by a kid who's angry that their parents left them on the side of the road or whatever traumas that may be there, you don't necessarily pick up that, you know, baggage and bring it home at Buc-ee's. So, and you're getting paid more. So it seems that they are in desperate need of some funding. Is what I'm hearing.
Julia, of those, you said 28 staff, correct? Currently?
Yes,
28, how many are full-time versus part-time?
we probably have 6 to 8 of them are part-time. That's the other thing that helps, is that if people have, you know, if they want full-time, because it comes with benefits. We have pretty good benefits for a nonprofit. And then the majority of our part-time employees are in the shelter, in the house, and they're students, they're college students.
And then one last question for me. So the packet had 3 different sets of documents from the Greater San Marcos Youth. One of their general info is the profit and loss budget, is that for both organizations, the shelter and FAUIS?
We were, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was saying it's page 1 of the general info for the combined.
She won't necessarily have the same pages.
Okay.
Because, for example, if an agency submitted a whole bunch of documents, we combined it. But I would say that they do have to submit financials for the agency as a whole, and then also for the program.
Gotcha.
So you may be looking at.
So I'm looking at basically the agency total, right?
Yeah, that should be in the general info folder, would be for the agency. That would make sense.
Okay,
The
great.
budget for the specific programs is included in that respective file.
We just have a couple more minutes. Does anybody else, excuse me, have a question about this program?
Well, last question for Julia. You said you have 2 beds available for emergency purposes at all times.
Mhm.
Is that basically for, since the shelters are 24 hours, in case something happens like overnight or something like that?
Yes, and it's actually, the reason we did that initially was because law enforcement, our local law enforcement requested it, so that they wouldn't have a problem if they arrest somebody in the middle of the night, or they find children alone in a hotel room. They can just bring them to us.
And that's actually the question where I was going to. So thanks for answering. Yeah. Any other questions, anybody?
Okay.
Thank you for your time, Julia and Victoria.
Thank you all so much. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, our next presenter is going to be Joe Castillo, and he is presenting on behalf of Nosotros La Gente. And we have the COATS program as the first program.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Joe Castillo. I'm the Vice President for Nosotros La Gente, which stands for We the People, which was founded in 1996. And I would like to thank the board for giving me this opportunity to speak to you this evening and for considering our request. Our mission is to serve our community by providing essential needs that positively impact lives. And the COATS program, which we're talking about now, will be in its third year next year. And it was established in 2021 using ARPA funds that we received from the city of San Marcos. Between December 2021 and December of last year, we purchased 313 coats at a cost of about almost $6,500. And then, of course, most of the clients that we've served are identified by either the counselors or the parent liaisons at the San Marcos School District campuses. And we're planning on doing another one for this fiscal year in the next 3 months, you know, as temperatures get cooler and everything. But basically the way the program works is that the parent liaisons identify the kids, and then we meet them over at Walmart, and then they pick out the coats. And a lot of them are very, they don't pick like a very heavy coat, and most of the time they'll pick up like a fleece jacket or something like that, so the kids can actually wear them, you know, throughout the winter months, so they're not stuck with a heavy coat that when they don't need one. But that's kind of how we identify the kids. And of course, our request is for $5,000, which is kind of what was funded last year. And there is no paid staff for that our organization hires to run the program. It's all done using volunteers. And but we just found that, you know, through the ARPA funds that we received a couple of years ago, and you know, with the funds we received this year, that there's still a need for purchasing coats for the kids here in San Marcos. You know, but that's basically, I mean, and of course, obviously the program is fairly new, so, but I think there's still a need for it in the community. You know, but that's basically it. I have a nutshell about the COATS program.
Okay, so thank you, and then we'll just open it up for a question and answer session. And we have 15 minutes for each organization, so since Joe went a little short on the presentation, we'll leave the rest of the time for Q&A if needed, and if not, we'll move on to the next thing. So y'all go ahead and ask questions.
Hi, Joe. Good evening.
Good evening.
So I had a couple of questions. So one was, I noticed that over the last year, I think it said for the first 2 quarters, there weren't reports submitted. Was that because those programs were not happening during that time of the year?
Probably said well, they may have been turned in late during the last year. I think that's probably what, because I think we're on a different reporting for this year, which is not due till next month.
Okay.
But as far as of course, last year we didn't have any funds from the city at all. It was mainly the shoe program is what they had funded the year before. So for the current fiscal year that we're in now, we haven't done any purchases of coats, and we won't be reporting anything until the middle of October.
Okay, thank you. And I noticed that on the application, when it asked about volunteer involvement, it indicated the number 149. Is that the number of hours? And if so, how many volunteers was that for?
I think that's the number of volunteers, and I think that's pretty much a standard that we've been, and we'll probably have less volunteers over ever since the pandemic, where we've lost some of our members and some of our volunteers, but on average, I think it's about 149. You know, when you look at the parent liaisons that actually work with the parents and the administration there at the school district, I mean, they're kind of indirectly a indirect cost, but we're not paying their salaries and like that. So, but yeah.
Okay, thank you.
what's the process for somebody to be able to sign up for coats? Or do they just go to an organization or building or?
Yeah, what we have them do is we have them approach the parent liaisons at each campus. I think almost every campus has a parent liaison. And so they get themselves on the list. And then ever since the pandemic, we really haven't had the kids go there and pick out, either shoes or coats and like that. The parent liaisons kind of has a feel of what the kids like. And so they actually go in and know what sizes. So they actually go out to Walmart and we meet them there. They pick out the coat for the child, and then we once they're done, then we pay for them there at the register.
Clayton, do you have a question?
Yes, good evening, Joe.
Good evening.
I see on your application you have 1,200 expected total direct clients. What was the exact number of clients that you served last fiscal year?
Well, last year we served about 313 as far as coats goes. Since the coats program, actually, I think more kids need shoes because it's a year-round thing. But as far as coats, it's more of a seasonal thing. So the funds that we used last year were actually from the American Rescue Funds and any funds that we may have raised ourselves. And because we haven't even touched the 5,000 that the city allocated for this current fiscal year. So we really won't know until we hear back from the parent liaisons of actually how many clients whether it's still going to be the 300 number or maybe a little bit more.
Okay, so that 1,200, just to be clear, is a combination of the coats and the shoe program.
Yeah, that's probably more on the, and I may have replicated it both apps, so it may indicate, but we're trying to serve basically the same number of kids in both, although with the inflation and everything, it kind of limits what we can do. That's why I think we focus more on the shoe program than anything else, but we definitely want to serve as many kids as we can on the coach program.
Thank you.
Another quick question, Joe. Were you with the organization in 2021?
Yes, I was a member of it, yes.
So how was the process during that big winter storm? Was there a huge spike in demand or? Yeah,
I think we postponed the initial distribution that we were going to do that year. And because I think we had planned it, and then of course when the winter storm came through, we had to reschedule it. But we still met with the parent liaison, still identified the kids, same they always do. And then we met them at Walmart. Of course, the other thing with Walmart too, we were struggling with was their supply chain. Trying to have enough adequate supply of coats or even shoes as another example. So we actually had to reach out to them and find out, when they could bring in enough inventory for us to have access to. And so it was kind of a combination of working with parent liaisons, with Walmart, and then of course scheduling with our members of our organization to go out there and be able to take care of that.
So there was a little bit of a lag between.
What was that again?
There was a little bit of a lag between the need and the fulfillment of the codes, I guess.
Yeah, there may have been a little lag. Let's see here.
I know it's 3 years ago, so I apologize. It's so far back.
Yeah, because I think in December of 2021, I think we purchased 3 coats that month, and then the bulk of it was done in late January. We purchased about 90 coats that period, and then there were another 35 we purchased in February, and then the following didn't go. And then of course towards the end of the year we did like 180 in December of last year. It was like 185. So the bulk, really, the most of the coats that we purchased was back, I guess, late December of 2022. And I think a lot of it's just because the program is so new, and just giving the parent liaisons the word of, because they've been aware of the shoe program for 20 plus years, but with the coats it was something new, and so with them identifying the kids and finding what their needs are as far as coats or shoes or both, or, you know, that's kind of where our challenge has been.
And the reason I was asking about that specific instance is, so you did mention you have still 5,000 from leftover, right?
Yeah, we still have 5,000 from this current fiscal year that the city council approved that we'll be spending here in between October and December of this year. And then obviously we do have funds left over from ARPA that we have to spend before next December of 2024. So, but that's another set of money. So, you know, we can serve a combination of with the money that we got from the Human Service Advisory Board money, and then also from ARPA funds to be able to, you know, meet additional needs as they need. But obviously that money is going to dry up soon. So,
And Marina, one more question and we'll get you, okay? Because I've seen that your hand's been up for a little bit. So the last question, Joe, is obviously this year, there are some projections that the winter is going to be a little bit harsher than usual years because of the Tony. Will these new 5,000 plus the other 5,000 be used towards this winter, or is it going to be further out?
Well, it could be. I mean, obviously we still have the funds for this coming winter. So, but if there's a need come out in January, depending on when the contracts get approved, you know, we'll be able to serve kids, you know, in January through March, April, whenever the winter months. So I can see where we could serve at the beginning of next year during the winter months if there's a need for it.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Mariana, go ahead.
Thank you. So, and sorry if y'all hear a train.
Okay.
So my next question was in regards to your board activities. So I see in this year in 2023, y'all have had 4 meetings and about 6 of the 14 board members have not attended. What challenges are y'all seeing with board involvement? And do you see this having any impact on your service delivery?
I don't think it has any impact on the service we were able to provide. It's more of, you know, coming up with like ideas for fundraising, because obviously we can't just completely rely on funds from, you know, from the city or other grants or like that. So when we do meet, and of course a lot of it is with you know, a lot of, I mean, we stay in communication even when we don't meet, but I think it's not really hindering us as far as being able to provide the service that we're doing. It's just some of the other things that we need. And of course, we've lost some key people too. You know, we used to have an annual turkey dinner that we would use to raise funds, but we're still trying to find something else to replace it. And, you know, it's a matter of just, you know, soliciting from possible donors and just find someone. I mean, local businesses will do like a given night for your organization, and you get certain percentage of their profits, you know. So those are things, just kind of trying to get people to be thinking about that, you know. And but I think once we come up with some ideas that, you know, the board will adopt, then I think they'll be very active. They may not be active at the meetings or, you know, when we have meetings, but, you know, everybody has the same passion for what we're trying to do.
Sure, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, we still have a couple minutes. Any other questions for the coach program?
Sorry, I do have one more. In the application, you mentioned seeking over the last 2 years prospective money from Walmart and HEB. Has that been fruitful for you all?
Yeah, Walmart has been more helpful because they know that, you know, the money goes back to their store anyway. So and we know that, you know, there was a certain period of time when you apply for their grants, and so you hit that window. Matter of fact, I think they were going to apply like end of July or something like that, and it was closed. But then as soon as the first part of August opened up, then, you know, we applied for their grant. And so, I mean, they're very aware of you know, what our program's about, and they see the numbers. You know, the day that we go and purchase items, they know, you know, that's because of those programs. So, but I think it's just, and a lot of that is just more of having someone there at the store, which we have good relationship with some of the department managers and stuff like that, because they basically have to sell it to the rest of the group. And so I think because of our ongoing relationship with them, they're able to support us and trying to get those grants approved.
Great, thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, so it's about time to move on to the next one anyway. So the next one is also Nosotros La Gente, and this is for the Viva Zapatos Shoe Drive, and so we'll hear from Joe Castillo. Joe,
Okay.
go ahead.
All right, thank you. Yeah, the Viva Zapatos shoe program, which will be in its 29th year next year. Thousands of San Marcos CISD's children have received a pair of shoes. 80% of the students in the San Marcos School District are classified as minority in today's economic situation. Even more families are in need. And out of over 8,000 students, over 5,000 of them are on free and reduced lunch. And then the organization would like to extend our deepest gratitude for consideration of our support of our program. None of the money we receive goes towards salary. It's all goes towards the purchase of shoes. So that's one thing that because we've never had paid staff for as long as I've been involved with the organization. And then, as I mentioned earlier, recipients are identified by the school counselors, the parent liaisons, and then they distribute. And of course, we distribute shoes multiple times throughout the year. Before, it needs to be just the time when, like in December, we used to just do one weekend shoe distribution, maybe a couple others that. But now we're doing it multiple times throughout the year. And the one was held August 2nd, just before school started. So the kids actually had their shoes before school started. So, and in that particular distribution, we purchased 411 pair of shoes. And then on average, as was mentioned earlier, we average about 1,200 pair of shoes each year. And I think it was, I think last year we purchased over 1,085 pair of shoes, and that was a kind of combination of money that we received from the Human Services Advisory Board, from our art money, and then money that we raised ourselves. So we didn't exactly meet the 1,200, but we came pretty close, and I think we're still going to come close to that this year, because I think we're doing another distribution sometime in October. I think that's what we're planning on doing. And then to date, our organization has given out over 23 pair of shoes to children in San Marcos and the San Marcos School District.
So
And I think-
Carol,
Yeah.
we bought- So, do we have to reschedule the last two?
Sorry, Joe, 1 second. Are you finished with your presentation?
Yes, I am. Sorry.
Okay, we had somebody drop off, Courtney. Okay, I'm hoping she'll come back. So let's keep going if you don't mind, or if we I don't know what to do.
Let's, since we already spoke to Joe at length, let's go ahead and finish with Joe. And then if she doesn't hop on, we'll have to reschedule for board appointment, special ed kids.
Okay,
So,
so, yeah.
Normally Nicole, I apologize, but if we don't get the quorum back, we'll have to push your presentation back a week or two.
Yeah, but hopefully, she's just having technical issues and we can,
Come back in.
and she'll come back in. So Joe, we'll keep going with you.
Okay.
Now we can open the floor for questions
Okay.
from the board.
Howdy again, Joe. Yeah, I know you said multiple times a year. Can you give like a specific amount of time you distribute shoes, like 4, 5, 6?
I would say probably about 4 times.
Okay.
Yeah. This is the first time that we've ever actually done one in August. I mean, that's early, but I think talking to the parent liaison, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. You do it right before school starts. That way kids have their shoes. They're excited to come back to school. And so that kind of worked out pretty well for us.
And then how many pairs did you say was in August of this year?
Yeah, we purchased 411.
Now, how many pairs does each kid get to have?
Well, they got one pair of shoes, and then we allocate X number of pair of shoes per campus. And so like some campus, like the San Marcos High School, for example, they picked up 39 pair of shoes. And then middle school, like Miller, they picked up 40, and then Goodnight was 31. And so they range from, I guess, from 40, I guess 40 is probably, 42 is like the max at a campus got. But it just kind of depends. Sometimes the parent liaisons have challenges trying to get the kids to, commit. It's like, oh yeah, get on the list, And so, but that's kind of what we do. These other subsequent distributions to catch the kids that we didn't provide a pair of shoes to.
And basically, so you have quite a few letters from the city, from the San Marcos Independent School District.
Yes.
Which that's a testament to your organization, so I appreciate that.
Sure.
Now, are the kids chosen by the liaisons, or how do they sign up, or how does the process go?
Well, the kids sign up with a parent liaison. Of course, the parent liaisons, they know the kids at their school. And so even if a child doesn't come to them, they pretty much know what kids, need, socks or other things. So they kind of get them on the list. Now, anytime someone, a parent or somebody reaches out to one of us, then we refer them to the parent liaison at the campus that their child goes to. So we try to not get involved in that part. I mean, basically the decision really, as far as they know more information about that child than we would ever know. And so we rely on them to kind of work with a child, the parent, to know, yeah, this child really does need a pair of shoes, or, that's kind of how we've been doing it.
Joe, do the children pick their shoes out like the Coke program, or how does that work?
No, unfortunately, we haven't had that before. Up until the pandemic, the children actually went to Walmart. They would go pick up their pair of shoes that they wanted, and then we pay for them. But ever since the pandemic, it's the parent liaison that actually goes and picks out the pair of shoes, and then we pay for them, and then they take them back, and then they make sure that the shoes fit the child. And if not, then they go and exchange it for either a larger or smaller size, depending on what the case may be.
Okay.
And is it always through Walmart, or do they have the option to go, obviously the outlets have a lot of good stores that have.
Yeah,
Well,
pretty much it's always been at Walmart. I think we used to do it at Payless years ago. But that store was just so small and they really wouldn't work with us. So we went over to Walmart, and they were just more welcoming for us to be there. There was more space and just a variety of shoes, and then the cost of the shoes allowed us to purchase more shoes that way. But that's pretty much why we go to Walmart.
And how many total kids did you say were held by the shoe program?
Well, for the total last year, we purchased 1,085 pair of shoes, and then this year so far we purchased 411.
Is that meeting the need, or is it just, is that a baseline number?
I haven't heard anything whether there's still officers going to be. We're doing it again in October. I think is what that's communication with our contact with the school district. And so because I think they just I'm not quite sure how they did it, but I know they identified kids that needed before school started, so that was kind of their focus. And I'm sure there's other kids, or even kids that were okay with their shoes, but as they wear and tear on them, so they're going to identify those kids, and then they'll be on the list for the next distribution.
And are there some kids that basically take advantage of the program throughout the year more than once, or is it just once?
We used to limit it because we only had it once per year years ago. It was just that one time, but now I think as kids, we find out that even though they got a pair of shoes before, but they need another pair of shoes, we'll include them in the list the next distribution that we do. So we're not going to turn anybody away or saying, oh yeah, you already got shoes already. You know, if there's a need, you know, we'll try to meet it as best we can.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Sure.
Any more questions, Clayton, Mariana?
How many more families are you hoping to reach, this coming year?
Probably another 500, probably. You know, that's kind of what we're up with, because you know we met 1,085 end of last year, and so I think if we can kind of reach that same, you know, number, maybe more. But I think it's on average we always try to meet 1,200 families, or not necessarily families, but children, you know, because there's a pair of shoes for each child that we assist. And so if we can reach that goal again, you know, this year, that's pretty much, we'll meet our goal that we're trying to accomplish.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
And
Okay.
last question, Joe.
Oh,
No.
You see quite a bit of overlap between the coats and the shoes.
Oh, that's okay.
Do you see overlap between the coats and the shoes also?
In some cases, yes. But I think the coats, you know, that they last longer, you know. So even though we purchased coats for the kids like maybe last year, they still have, but where shoes, I mean, you're walking on all the time. So the wear and tear is there. So to me, there's a bigger need on the shoes, which is kind of why we've been doing it for over the 20+ years. But you know, there's still that need for coats, you know, maybe a smaller group, but there's still the need.
Okay, so here's our, so Joe, that'll conclude our part for Nosotros La Gente.
Okay.
Here's an update on our forum situation. I did not get a hold of Courtney. I think she must be having technical difficulties. However, I did get a hold of Monica, and she's gonna be here in person in about like 3 to 4 minutes. And so Nicole and Norma, if it's okay with you, we will just hold for a few minutes until Monica gets here, and then we'll have a quorum again and we can keep going.
Thank you, Carol.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
We're gonna take a 5-minute break. It's 7:02. We'll come back at 7:10, you think?
Yeah, she should be here pretty much in the 3 minutes or so.
So recording stuff?
Let's see. I think I'd rather let it run so that we just have one recording. Yeah.
You could pause the recording instead of stopping it, and that should.
Okay, we're back on. It's 7:09 p.m. and we do have a quorum now. So go ahead, Carol.
Okay. So our next presenters are for court-appointed special advocates, and the name of their program is Advocacy for Abused and Neglected Children in San Marcos. And the presenters are Norma Castilla Blackwell and Nicole Douglas. And so y'all are welcome to get started.
Thank you. Good evening, committee and Carol. Thank you for that introduction. My name is Nicole Douglas, and I serve as the Director of Development with CASA of Central Texas, which stands for Court Appointed Special Advocate. And I am also joined by our Chief Executive Officer, Norma Blackwell, and she'll make a few comments at the end of my presentation to you. But for this funding year, or 2023-24 Human Services funding, CASA requested $60,000 so that we may continue to recruit, train, and support more community volunteers as guardian ad litem advocates for 135 estimated San Marcos children who've been removed from unsafe homes due to allegations of abuse and neglect. Our trained CASA volunteer advocates meet directly with children and youth ages birth to 18, as well as young adults working toward independent living situations. CASA advocates consult with teachers, doctors, mental health professionals, and counselors, maintain contact with parents and relatives, and they search for relatives who may be able to help the family through the time in the child welfare system. We work alongside Child Protective Services, caseworkers, contractors, and attorneys, and attend court every 3 to 4 months or so to present findings in a written court report to the presiding judge, who makes the ultimate decision about where the child should live. Amongst all of these people, CASA is charged to represent the best interests of the individual child or sibling group. And we work hard to find permanency for the child out of CPS and substitute care, where they can thrive and where they're safe. Our volunteers provide in the city of San Marcos an unduplicated service as guardian ad litem. Excuse me. Like many other of our local social service programs, CASA is experiencing a tremendous growth alongside the city of San Marcos and Hays County. As you may know, CASA of Central Texas serves a 4-county footprint, which includes Hays, Comal, Guadalupe, and Caldwell counties. In the heart of the Texas's fastest growing communities, CASA of Central Texas is nestled between the large metro cities of Austin and San Antonio, with 2 of our 4 counties amongst the fastest growing counties in the United States. Comal listed as number 9 and Hays County right behind them at number 12, with residents populations of over 20,000 or more that saw the greatest percentage in growth from 2021 to 2022, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, thus bringing significant opportunity and further program growth. Our San Marcos children represent in 2022 140 of the 4-county total of 562 that CASA of Central Texas was able to provide advocacy for by serving as guardian ad litem. The city of San Marcos and CASA have been longstanding partners in protecting our most vulnerable community members, our children, and finding safe and stable homes for them. CASA has been good stewards of the city of San Marcos's human services funding through our monthly reporting and funding draws. We've been in good standing with the city of San Marcos. I acknowledge that you have a challenging task before you this evening in reviewing many worthy organizations with limited funding. But I am also personally grateful to our CASA volunteers, over 120 strong in San Marcos and Hays County, and our local board members who've given their time and their hearts to speak up for children in our courts, schools, and elsewhere in our communities. I'm honored to represent the volunteers and children on this panel. On behalf of all of those, thank you for your time and consideration of CASA's funding request this evening. And I'll let Ms. Blackwell say a few words.
Good evening, and thank you to the committee and Cheryl for your time and commitment. Like Nicole mentioned, it's a tough decision. But I also wanted to share with you all that we have a very, very active board of directors. We almost have about 90% attendance as a board, the board members, not about 90%. And I would say 100% retention rate in board members. At our CASA, one of the CASA requirements for board members is to donate $1,000 a year, and we have 100% giving. It is important for them for people to know that they also are providing funds to be able to support these children. I also would like to share and give credit to my volunteers, to my staff, for having about 87% retention rate in volunteers. And we have 100% retention rate in staff. I have staff that have been with me for 25 years, 24 years, 23, 20, 15, 10. So I'm very proud to say that, and I do give a lot of credit to my staff, because they are the ones that are taking care of the volunteers. It's 30 volunteers per case supervisors. I always tell them they're dealing with 30 personalities and they're dealing with different cases. So for every every case supervisors, they oversee 30 volunteers. Those 30 volunteers can oversee up to 75 to 80 kids a year. So I just wanted to share that with you, and I want to thank you for always, for the times you all been supporting CASA. We really appreciate your support.
Okay, thank you, and we're just slightly over, so we'll have about, I can't do math, 12 minutes or so. I mean, no, 8 minutes or so to do questions and answers. So y'all go ahead and ask questions. Anybody on the board?
Good evening. I have one question. So last year, y'all, if I remember correctly, requested a little over $20,000. Is the request this year in anticipation of serving about 3 times as many children in the community, or is there another factor that's making the difference for y'all this year?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mora, for asking that question and reminding me to make that comment. So last year, we had the 2 applications with CDBG funding and Human Services funding. This year, the cycles ran a little concurrently. So at the time of submitting the CDBG application and Human Services, we were unsure of any funding from CDBG. And so we were recently given a number recommended from CDBG of 35,000. So we would be asking for the 25,000, the reduction from our ask from CDBG funding.
Let me repeat that just to make sure I understand. So are you asking for, so are you changing your amount requested from Human Services Advisory Board?
Correct. So our objective is to maintain at least the same level of service. And so at the time of the applications, we submitted both the 60,000 because we were, like I said, unsure of the funding from either. So the 60,000 would reflect the amount needed to maintain service for the children we anticipate in the city of San Marcos.
Okay, so I'll just subtract the amount that you received for CDBG. And the rest you'll be requesting from Human Services Advisory Board.
Yes, ma'am. And if I recall correctly, I believe the recommendation from CDBG was 35,000.
I'll have to double check, but I'll make sure that we just subtract, that part. Yeah, because I can't remember how much y'all got, honestly.
Okay, so the remaining 25. That's helpful. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking the question. I meant to put that in there.
Anybody else have some questions for CASA? We still have about 6 minutes.
Yes, I do. Good evening, Ms. Douglas, Ms. Blackwell. I see you in your application, you put 135 children of San Marcos you're serving. Do you know, like, Hays County total, what that number would be, including those 135 San Marcos residents?
Yes, I do. So for Hays County, it would be 228.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, do we have any other questions? No rush, really, but go ahead. Yeah.
So is this money gonna go towards, I really in the application, you mentioned 6 casework supervisors, so is this six existing or 6 new?
Existing.
Okay. So it's just to support the continuation of those roles?
Yes, ma'am.
Correct.
And would the same be true for the 2 community engagement coordinators?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? I don't wanna cut it short, but if we're good, then we can move on. Y'all need more time?
Anybody else?
Okay, then, thank y'all very much for presenting for CASA, and we'll close that presentation, and then I'll hand the table back over to the chair.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful. So we're gonna move on to discussion item number 6. Number 1, we will now hold discussion among the board members on programs, agencies, and applications for the purpose of clarification, comparison, evaluation, and assessment. This discussion is public, however, it is only among board members. This time is meant to be a free flow of conversation. Please make your comments succinct to allow time for all board members to share if they wish. This discussion will be facilitated by Carol Griffith, the Housing Community Development Manager. Carol, the floor is yours.
Okay, so I'll just go ahead and open the floor, and I keep talking to the screen, but really more people are over here, so I'll keep.
Sorry.
Yeah, so I'll open the floor for discussion, and the purpose of this time is for y'all to, you can compare notes or questions or go over what you've heard tonight. You can talk about other applications that are out there just as a discussion. So it's kind of a free flow. So just to remind you of kind of the process, we'll have, the 5 presentations every week. And then at the very end, we have 2 meetings that are totally discussion and figuring out funding allocation and that kind of thing. So the point of this is to just try to make sure that everything's clear and that it sticks in your mind, because you're going to hear a lot over the course of time. And so anything that will help you just sort of establish what you've heard, I hope that's helpful. So this is just an open time for y'all. And just, I guess to repeat too, like the agency members who have presented or the public or anybody can stay on and listen, of course, because it's a public meeting, but this will just be between board members. Like you can't ask questions anymore of the agencies.
I did have
Okay.
a clarifying question. And Carol, it might be more geared towards you, but when I was filling out the risk assessment criteria and going down to performance history, I don't know if I overlooked it or if it maybe wasn't included, but did we receive copies of the reports for those who received funding this past year?
You don't have copies of the reports. We
Okay.
provide those if y'all would like to see them.
I would. I think we did last year. They might have attached it as a part of their application. And I found the chart with the tally for the reports helpful to know if they submitted them or not, but I would be interested in seeing some of their outcomes in more detail.
Okay, yeah, we can provide that. I'll try to get that in your board packet for tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Is this for 2022?
So it would be, yeah, for the, it would be for the 2022 year. So here's how it has happened. Like we, started very late this year. And so the contracts weren't even finished until like April. And so they haven't, and I'm also not asking them to turn in reports this year until October.
Yes.
Because I was like, we're starting so late, let's not even deal with that. So I'll give y'all the reports from the prior year, which is the 2022 spending year.
Okay.
Yeah.
But not this year. So should we just hold off on scoring that section since it's asking about whether or not they met their outcomes?
I would, because what you'll get after October 15th, which I know is kind of late, but you'll have a few days. You'll get a report for how it's been going for the first 3 quarters of the year.
Okay.
That's kind of the compromise I decided to do just based on the year that we've had.
Yeah, it's a little unusual, but I think that makes more sense and I'm okay with that too. So scratch that. I don't need the 2022, but wouldn't mind waiting until October.
Okay. Sounds good. Any other questions like that too? Just procedure, I know a lot of people are new this year.
Was there one year that we were not allowing funding to go towards salaries? Or did I incorrectly remember that?
I don't know about prior years. The deal this year is that it can't be more than 20% of a full-time position, because that's what council has asked us to do.
Okay.
The funding could fund a whole part-time position. And so yeah, so you'll see if they're funding staff, which my thing is always, it takes people to serve people, right? But so they, just had to spread the funding across more staff to get it to that 20% level, basically, yeah. Okay.
And really quick on the scoring tally, sheet. Is that the one we're gonna turn in? It's hard to.
Yeah, it's in Excel, so if you can do it in Excel, great, and if you can't, print it and do it by hand, and I'll just type it into Excel.
Well, I have it on a PDF here. Cause I think you loaded on both PDF.
Yeah, because some people can't read Excel, yeah, so, okay,
I can't read it.
yeah. So does that work for you? Cause,
Yeah.
okay.
So for the youth council, can someone clarify the National Talent Support Network? Like, are they a part of that? Or are they like, is it are they part of the national network? Is that what they were saying?
That was my understanding, yeah, like that, so here's our local organization and they're part of this national network.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other,
Some forms, so we have the eval form, the risk form, and the scoring tally. The eval form, the risk form, we have to fill one of those out for each organization.
you don't have to, so maybe some people can just score in their head, I always have to make notes, and so that's where I was thinking, if you wanna make notes, you can use the evaluation form to make your notes. Hypothetically, I would ask y'all to turn those in, because it's a public process.
Yeah.
I have been pretty lazy about that, so we don't have notes from past years, so it might happen or it might not, but you don't have to fill out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, cause what I was thinking of doing, and you guys are free to do whatever you want, but, I was gonna use them as. Basically, when I go through each organization, use them as a reference guide, but put everything on the scoring tally, and then just turn in the scoring tally. Cause in the end, that's what I'm gonna use to see how much we're gonna allocate for.
Yeah.
I won't allocate too soon.
Yeah, so what
Yeah, I would,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I would encourage it, because we will go through so many presentations, it will become difficult to remember what was said. And if you don't want to go back and watch our meeting recordings, that might be the easiest thing to do to save you some time.
It does, it gets overwhelming, and, but just to reiterate, that scoring tally is what y'all will turn in, first. And I make a big Excel spreadsheet where you can see everybody's scores, so that y'all can, and then that is your board packet for the discussion meetings. So you can kind of see where everybody sits on scoring. And I guess, Monica, just for your benefit, this year, I am highly encouraging people to use the whole 100 points, I think you do anyway. It seems
Yes, I
like you do, yeah, so, yeah, so that way we won't have some using the whole 100 points and some just using 90 to 100 or whatever, so.
I'll
Anything?
say the only feedback I have about the applicants tonight are these three organizations are pretty long-standing organizations in the San Marcos community and have a long track record. So I'm glad they were able to answer the few questions we did have. But other than that, I think they've really proven that they're efficient with the money that they receive and do great things with it. So I'm glad that they've continued to reapply and have been great partners with the city.
And just so you know, the order of presentation and everything was just like, Lorena called them, and whenever they could slot in, we did it. So it's not, we didn't group them according to categories or anything like that, so you know. It's happened.
Carol, so the ones that would have happened last week, have those just been added to the end?
They have.
Okay.
Yep. They were
Thank you.
very great about that.
Okay, so I guess another clarifying question. For the youth council, did they say that their resources are free for families with children in San Marcos? Is that what they said?
I would have to look at the application. Does anybody else?
I don't know that they said it. Maybe they did and I missed that, but their services are free.
So Mariana's familiar with them. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Should we move on to the next thing? So,
I think we're gonna get more in depth as we go on.
yeah,
I think it would-
yeah, this is, and it's just kind of an awkward time, but it's also just, you know, one thing I used to ask, I guess, is there anything that stood out to you about these organizations that you want to remember? That you want to be sure and note?
Well, the first one that we did, the shelter, the children's shelter. I mean, what struck me the most is that they have those, quote unquote, 2-bed available at any time. Because that's something that the community really needs. Because as they said, you know, if one of the parents ends up being arrested, what are you gonna do with the kid?
Yeah.
You know, so that's good. That shelter is a good resource for the community. And I don't know about you guys, but the coats in the shoe program, like that really struck me. Because they really do a really good job. I don't know if you guys saw the recommendation letters that they had, and reading all those recommendations, I was like, they really do what they're supposed to be done, so. I really appreciate that, those programs. The cost, I mean, it just fills a huge need. Especially with the numbers that they said they had. for
Yeah.
San Marcos.
And it has been going up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the reality of post-COVID era, you know?
Yeah.
A lot of trauma came out of those 2 years or so.
Yeah.
Well, we're technically still going, but
Yeah.
yeah. So that's my two cents on all three of them.
Mhm.
I just want to go ahead and say, you know, of course, thank you to all 5 of those organizations that presented the 3 for the 5 programs. But the most noteworthy thing to me was how forthcoming Costa was with the funding. I know Carol still has to check, but the funding they already received and dropping their request to 25,000 because, you know, of course, that 35,000 that could, you know, quote unquote, be found, for lack of a better term, it could really help a lot of other programs. So I really do appreciate them being forthcoming with that.
Any other comments? Something that struck you?
Agreeing with Mariana that they're long-standing organizations in the San Marcos community, you know, that help not just San Marcos, but surrounding areas as well, so commendable.
Yeah.
Really great.
San Marcos doing their bid for all these counties.
Yeah. Yeah, the coats and shoes program, since they coordinate through the schools, they serve all of the school districts. So they're one of those exceptions that serve more than San Marcos with this money. So,
I was like, well, since Costa's only needing 25 instead of 60, we got a little more for shoes and stuff.
we still have a lot of meetings to go, so. Okay, so I'm gonna hand it back over to you, Sharif, and then we'll go to the next thing.
So the next one is, we will receive a presentation by social work representative board member, Mariana Zamora. The board rules and regulations require that an overview be provided to the board annually, social work core values, code of ethics, and best practices related to service delivery. This presentation will be followed by discussion by the board. Mariana, feel free to begin your presentation when you're ready.
Great, thank you. Okay. Can everyone see that okay? Awesome. So as Sharif said, we have to go through this according to our board regulations, but I hope that y'all will find some of this information useful, as I know everyone in the room might not be a social worker like me. There's still plenty of application to what our board does and how this information will help you make more informed decisions throughout this process. So some of the points in our regulations that we have to cover are talking a little bit about the NASW Code of Ethics, social work core values, best practices for service delivery, evidence-based models and outputs versus outcomes, along with standards for grant applications and the process for applying for grants. So as I kind of share this information, at any point, feel free to stop me and let me know if you have any questions, but there will be an opportunity at the end. So why is this important? The social work profession and the information included in this presentation hopefully will provide some sort of framework as we begin to evaluate applications and make considerations for funding. Ultimately, we are the ones making recommendations to City Council for funding of the human service agencies, and we have a responsibility to taxpayers and a greater obligation to our community. So the NASW Code of Ethics is a set of standards that guide the professional conduct of social workers. It consists of 4 sections. So the first section, the preamble, summarizes the social work profession's mission and core values. The second section, the purpose, provides an overview of the code's main functions and a brief guide to help us navigate ethical issues and dilemmas when they arise. The third section covers ethical principles that are pretty broad based on our social work values, but it helps to inform our social work practice. And then lastly, the final section covers ethical standards. So it provides very specific guidance for social work conduct around ethics. So the NASW Code of Ethics was created by the National Association of Social Workers. It's continuously reviewed and updated. So the most recent version was updated in 2021 to include guidance for social workers around self-care, as well as cultural awareness. And so all social workers are held to this standard. So the mission of the social work profession is rooted in a set of core values, and those are the ones listed on the right side. These core values are embraced by social workers throughout the profession's history and are the foundation to our unique purpose and perspective, which is to enhance human well-being and help meet the basic needs of those who are vulnerable, oppressed, and living in poverty. And so our 6 values that guide our work include service. So our primary goal is to help people in need and to address social problems. Social justice. So we promote social justice and change with and on behalf of clients. We ensure to remain sensitive to cultural and ethnic diversity and strive to end discrimination, oppression, poverty, and other forms of social injustice. Next is the dignity and worth of a person. So we treat others in a caring and respectful manner, and we are mindful of individual differences. Second to last, or next, sorry, is importance of human relationships. So social workers understand that relationships between and among people are necessary to be that vehicle for change. Then there's integrity. So of course, we behave in a trustworthy manner. And last is competence. So we make sure to practice within our areas of competence and develop and enhance our professional expertise on an ongoing basis. So when you hear the term best practices, this is used to describe the preferred technique or approach for achieving a valued outcome. The identification of best practices require that organizations, number one, put in place quality data collection, so a way to measure. Second, it would require that they have quality improvement processes. So do they have benchmarking systems? And then last, do they have a method for analyzing and benchmarking that data to help understand the results to produce better outcomes? So depending on the service setting or the population that these organizations are working with, there may be best practices in their organization for things such as how they identify and recruit clients, maybe how they retain and engage clients. So there's tons of different best practices out there, but it'll vary per organization. And you'll probably hear the term evidence-based models from a few of our applicants. And so initially, evidence-based practices was quoted and found in medicine, but since then has been adopted by many fields, including education, child welfare, mental health, and criminal justice. So evidence-based practices or models are a combination of integrating, number one, the best available research out there, number two, an understanding of a client's background, culture, and preferences, and then three, our professional practice expertise. So an evidence-based process is characterized by 5 steps. Number one would be asking. So as practitioners and organizations, we aim to start where the client is, assume that they are the experts in their experience. Second, we would acquire. So we would ask questions like what evidence and theory exists out there to explain the situation. We would look at what research is available. And is there a model that fits what our community wants and what they need? Number three would be appraise. So we would ask what's the best information about what will work best for our clients. And once we find that information, we come with an understanding that one size does not fit all. So we might ask more questions about the theory behind different practices and interventions, or our relevancy to the specific community we serve. Fourth would be apply. So implementing whatever that best choice is for our organizations. And then last would be assess. So taking a step back, analyzing and adjusting and determining what worked best and what changes need to occur. So nonprofits that employ evidence-based practices ensure their clients are served in the most efficient way possible. And this practice pushes practitioners to consistently question assumptions, regularly seek out new information, and empowers organizations to discover methods they probably weren't familiar with before to determine what best meets the needs of their clients. So essentially, evidence-based practices use research and evidence to justify why they do things the way that they do. And as it relates to outputs versus outcomes, outputs by definition are things that the applicant and or those included in the proposal will be doing. So as some of our applicants have outlined, they've talked about what tasks they will undertake, what activities will be involved in their projects. And then outcomes are going to be the direct benefits that are produced. So will a client leave their services with an increased knowledge or skill, a change in behavior? And I think something we most look for is those that will have a longer term and wider outreach and impact. So for us funders who want to see results and know the means by which grant applicants will reach them, we want to know that these activities and tasks have a high likelihood of being successful in meeting realistic and meaningful results. And we should evaluate the applicant's ability to meet the need identified in their application. We want to know that we're making a good investment in our resources. So here I've provided just a short summary of some of the standards for any type of grant application. these can be named multiple different things. And so on the in the bolded text, I've included what we call them. But in the other text beside it, it's what you might find in other applications. So generally, every grant application includes some type of abstract or summary. And so it's an opportunity for applicants to share who they are, what do they do, and can include things like organizational charts, logic models, and a description of the project that they're requesting funding for. Next, generally applications have a needs assessment. So a justification of the need of the program in San Marcos, supported by data, whether qualitative or quantitative. And projects should be in response to a gap in resources, knowledge, or opportunity that needs to be filled. Typically, it'll provide some type of background context about why this particular issue exists with this population. And it can sometimes include a literature review clarifying that those organizations are well read on the topic and understand the context and significance of their projects. Next would be goals and objectives. So this is a chance for candidates to share how these funds will be used, what specific activities they plan to accomplish, along with a timeline and who are the personnel that are going to help them achieve that. So we'll learn more about what specific measurable outcomes or results they hope to achieve and how they will be able to measure and report their impact, whether that's through using surveys, different measurement tools, or other data. And then next would be the budget and budget narrative. So that would include a detail of program cost and overhead, a description of funding sources and fundraising efforts, and clarification of what they're asking for and why they're asking for the particular amounts. And then last, you might have other items. So depending on the grant application, they might request things like cover letters, letters of support, which we do, financial statements, or list of board members. That's pretty typical for grant applications. And I stole this from Carol. This was from the June board meeting, but this information here specifically outlines our process for applying for grants for this cycle. But typically with any grantor, applications become available to candidates with specific instructions for completion and usually provide some type of support to potential grantees. Next, the organization's grant writer or leadership team will come together to complete their application. And then grantees receive feedback on their application. The funder might ask for more specifics or changes to their application. And once we've had a chance to review it, ultimately at the end, we decide whether that funding is granted or denied. And then the grantee is responsible for providing regular updates on their program and their use of funding through reports. And then, of course, they could choose to reapply again at the end of funding and when the new cycle begins. So it's going to be a heavy next couple of months. Okay, that is all I have. Does anyone have any questions?
Can we get that presentation?
Yes, of course.
You send it as a PDF, and I wondered if did you write yourself a script? Because if we could have that too, I would.
It includes notes. I can send that PDF to you.
Great, I'll get it out to them.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mariano.
Of course.
That was awesome. Thank you.
So we're gonna move on to item number 6, reports. It is now time to receive updates from board members on activities since last meeting. Does any board member have any updates for the group?
No.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to the next item, which is future agenda items. Item number 7, board members may provide requests for discussion items for a future agenda in accordance with the board's approved bylaws. No further discussion can be held related to the topics proposed until they are posted on a future agenda in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. Does any board member have any requests for any item for a future agenda?
No.
Okay. So thank you. We're gonna move on to the question and answer session for the present public. This is an opportunity for present public to ask any questions related to items on the agenda. Staff, anybody present online, in person, or by phone to speak on any agenda item?
So, at this time, Norma or Nicole or Joe, y'all are the public, who are still on the meeting. And you could ask questions specific to this agenda in some way as a member of the public. So I just thought I'd mention that. Other than that, we don't have any members of the public. So it looks like we don't have any questions. Oh, there's Norma.
No, I don't have any questions. Nicole, I don't know if you have any questions.
No, neither did I. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so item number 10, adjournment. Thank you everybody for participating, all the people that spoke for organizations and the members for showing up. Do I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, motion was made
Second.
by. Hold on a second, by Yancy Arevalo and second from Clayton Carlisle. All in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Okay. So we'll now adjourn the meeting at 7:51 PM on September 7th, 2023.